The world of the graffiti artist is frequently controversial. There are those who dismiss the art form as vandalism and others who revere the democratic nature of the creative process involved. Literally anybody with a spray can get on board. Joining us now is a graffiti artist called Muhammad Ali. Muhammad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you.
Now, that's a pretty impressive name you've got. What's the story behind it?
I knew you'd ask that. Nothing really behind it. It was just the name I was born with. So it wasn't inspired by the boxer, but certainly I'm a big fan of him for sure.
Now, you are actually someone who has a religious aspect to your work. Is it fair to call you a religious artist?
First time I've been described as a religious artist, I'd say. Many would call me even an Islamic artist or a Muslim artist, but certainly faith is a big part of what I do. So you could say, for sure, there's no denying the fact that my art is clearly inspired by faith and spirituality, for sure.
Tell us what you do.
I paint murals, paint graffiti art murals, which pretty much a lot more than what we see in maybe what we're used to seeing, where murals with perhaps, it could be the mindless scrawls that we see on bus stops and city walls, or murals that are just more about visual aesthetics, it's very colourful and vibrant. But what I try and do is put something more with a message. So these are message-based murals that are really attempting to kind of explore issues that, that kind of affect all of us, whether it's about the kind of the world today, things around us, virtuous kind of principles like generosity and being kind of good to your neighbor and all of these kind of things that I think are sadly fading away from our modern societies, really. These principles of brotherhood and freedom, justice, these concepts are the ones that I often like to kind of portray in the murals that I do.
Now, none of that sounds in any way controversial at all, but you have occasionally found yourself on the wrong side of people who thought that there was something more sinister to the work you're doing. I know you had a problem in Chicago, is that right? Yeah.
Unfortunately, there will always be ignorance in the world. Chicago, I had a lot of problems in, and I'll tell you a story. In fact, I'm jumping in ahead really, but when I was leaving Chicago, just to show you the kind of ignorance that sadly existed there, as I was leaving Chicago airport, I was stopped on these supposed random security checks that I happened to be always being stopped for. And I said to them, listen, just please don't beat around the bush. Just tell me the truth. You stopped me because I'm a Muslim. Am I right? And it was amazing. The airport guy admitted it. And you know what he said to me? He said, you know what? It's my job. Yes, it's because you're a Muslim. But he said to me, he goes, we don't just do the Muslims. We do the Irish as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, unfortunately, ignorance is always going to be there, right? And yes, I was stopped from painting a mural out there. I wasn't able to finish it, complete it, but it was just total ignorance. It was a peace mural. And how can a peace mural about bringing the community together, how can anyone have any issues with that? That is just beyond me.
They misread or they didn't understand some of the iconography involved.
That's right. There was one of the murals in the Arabic script, because often I use kind of the influence of this kind of this curved, kind of elegant Arabic script within the work that I do. And some of the script, they misinterpreted as being that they assumed that these two vertical elements of the letters were the Twin Towers toppling over. Which was obviously, not at all what I was aiming to do. But as I said, ignorance always exists. Even if after explaining to them, no, you got the wrong end of the stick, people will forever just, I think it will always exist, unfortunately.
How do you respond to that, though? Because it must be quite frustrating. You find people who don't understand your work there. On your way home, you get stopped, and really all you're trying to do is to share what seems like a very peaceful message with people. At any point does your frustration become angry? Because you can kind of understand where the anger comes from. Yeah,
I mean, to be honest with you, the ignorance, doesn't deter me at all. Rather, it makes me kind of want to strive even more. So I realize that there's so much work that we need to do. And I understand why there is. Sometimes I think, the ignorance of people, you don't blame them. People believe stuff that they see on TV or pick up the tabloid newspapers, and they're fed this stuff, really. And you can't blame them that there's not opportunities for people to have honest dialogue and ask the questions perhaps they always wanted to ask someone, maybe ask someone who's a Muslim faith, tell me about your religion, what does it say about, extra terrorism? And perhaps they don't have that dialogue where they can just talk to a regular guy and just say, tell me about yourself, and this is the sad thing, I think, that in our society today, that we need to have more of this dialogue that takes place, and art for me is one of the most powerful ways of bringing people together and making that dialogue happen.
The whole notion of graffiti as an art form is something that graffiti artists have to continually reassert. You need to always go out there and fight your corner and fight for your right to do that.
Completely. I mean, the tired-old argument of is graffiti art or vandalism? We've been going on for decades now. The same old debate we hear in the media time and time again. Is it art or vandalism? And it gets a bit tedious. Whereas some societies I've travelled to and I've worked, from Melbourne, for example, Melbourne, Australia, their attitude towards graffiti is so much more evolved and progressed. It's become to such a point where I witnessed it with my own eyes. I see newlywed couples in their white wedding dresses and Rolls Royces posing in front of graffiti to have their official wedding pictures. So it shows how certain city authorities have moved on from that now, and things have changed. And I'm hopeful that through the work that I do, and perhaps just kind of talking to people, engaging like I am with your listeners today, people will see that we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Graffiti is an amazing, exciting way of just expressing something and taking art literally onto the streets, bursting outside of these conventional, nice, posh art galleries, and taking art where it should be, which is out in the streets for everyone to engage with.
Two questions from our listeners. They want to know, what does the Muslim community think of your work? And the other one is, what do you think of Banksy's work? And I suppose from that there'd have to be an ancillary question about whether or not you think he's actually helping people like you to get more notice. I mean, whether or not you even like the work or agree with how he makes his art. But what about the Muslim community first? What do they make of your work?
Muslim community, I think so far, I get a lot of support from the community. Initially, there was a lot of kind of raised eyebrows. It's strange. You would think, that people assume that, this guy is doing this, use sacred message and combining with of all art forms, this street graffiti. This just didn't sit comfortable with many. But I think eventually, I've been on this around a long time now, and people eventually realized through various interviews, and I've done a lot of kind of interviews on in the press, but people have realized that this is something that I'm not kind of exploiting the faith in any way. This is something, an expression of even my own faith, my own identity, and I have total respect of not. I'm not out there to kind of cause controversy or shake the bridges that we're on. My art's about building those bridges. And Banksy as an artist, no doubt I have a lot of respect, and I think certainly, probably through his art single-handedly, I think he has totally opened up the society, well, not just in the UK, but beyond. Even America is a big name over there, but certainly I think he has done a lot to change people's perceptions that graffiti is more than just the kind of mindless scrawls that we see out there.
All right, Muhammad Ali, great to have you on the programme today, and thanks very much for making your case for us. aerosolarabic.com is the URL if you want to have a look at some of the work, some of Muhammad Ali's work. Really worth a visit.